This is a story I'm going to be telling my grandchildren. Nintendo in 2016. Now, there's one main thing I kind of want to build up to here, but I definitely just want to talk about how pathetic it felt to be a Nintendo fan in 2016. Now, looking back, there was a lot of stuff Nintendo did in 2016. It was a pretty, it was a seemingly very slow year for the company, but when you kind of add up everything that they did, it was a lot, especially considering that was the year Pokemon Go launched, which wasn't entirely a Nintendo thing, but it was related to Nintendo, and Nintendo was involved with Pokemon Go, but the Pokemon company is separate from Nintendo, even though Nintendo owns a stake in it, blah, 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 it's complicated, but, it wasn't like a part of Nintendo's major mobile initiative, but that lit the entire world on fire that year. So, I mean, that alone made 2016 one of Nintendo's bigger years. But in terms of their console releases, it felt very doom and gloom. Nintendo announced that the Nintendo NX was a thing, their next home console, in 2015, and they said, hey, wait till 2016 for more information on it. And we were all expecting by January of 2016 that they were finally going to reveal what the Nintendo NX is. They revealed it in October every single week. It was literally like, all right, NX, 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 what is it? What is it? What is it? When are they going to reveal it? When are they going to reveal it? When's it going to release? What are the launch games? What games are even coming out for it? Is Pikmin 4 going to be for it? And then they announced that Breath of the Wild was going to get delayed when it was originally just called Zelda Wii U. It was going to get delayed and it was going to release on NX as well and all of that kind of stuff. There was a leak every single day pretty much. There were rumors all the time. It was a very interesting time, and it was a very anxious time to be a Nintendo fan, mainly because that was what we were all looking towards, because what they had on the market at the time was it was a very just ho-hum kind of year. The Wii U specifically was in its final major year on the market, and yeah, you can definitely tell. The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD release, which at the time, I was incredibly disappointed by this, mainly because I didn't really understand the true differences between like a remake, a remaster, a port, blah, 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 blah. I just assumed anything with HD at the end of it was like, oh man, this is a remake. And when Wind Waker HD came out, I looked at that like, wow, they did so much to this game. And they did a lot to it in terms of sprucing up the gameplay, kind of like trimming the fat and making that game much more just accessible and fun to revisit, specifically kind of trimming down the Triforce quest at the end, which just went on for way too long. But overall, when you look at the original GameCube version compared to the HD version, it's really not that much different. In fact, I totally understand why some people would prefer how the GameCube version looks, because the Wii U version has a lot of bloom, even though the HD version is still beautiful in its own right. Twilight Princess HD, I just remember watching the initial trailer for this game and thinking, okay, when are they going to switch to the HD version? Like, I thought they were playing the original GameCube / Wii footage of the game, and then they were going to do a side-by-side. They were going to do this transition where it goes, and then it shows the HD version. No, that was just the HD version. Twilight Princess, just inherently with its art style and just how everything looks, with being a little more realistic in terms of how characters are proportioned, I guess, especially compared to Wind Waker. It doesn't age as well. It just doesn't. A lot of the geometry of the worlds, you look at the mountains, you look at how the terrain looks, and it looks like a GameCube game. And a lot of the character models, just the way they animate and all of that, we've progressed significantly since 2006 with video games and how character models and how human characters kind of move and act and look. So yeah, this game definitely showed its age, but when you look at it, they definitely improved way more than they did with Wind Waker. They had to go in and they had to change a lot, and they had to update a lot. The problem is Twilight Princess, so it inherently just looks worse than Wind Waker, even with the HD treatment. But, so at the time, I did look at this kind of like, oh man, no, I don't really think this is a great HD upgrade. But, now I kind of look at it like, you know what? I think I think this HD remake deserves a bit more credit than I gave it. It's pretty good. And this came out in March alongside Pokken Tournament, which came out just a few weeks later, which is a port of an arcade game, which is a crossover between Pokemon and Tekken, which is pretty much pretty much just Tekken with Pokemon characters. I just thought the name could have been different. I think it probably would have done a little better if they just renamed it Pokemon Tournament instead of Pokken Tournament. But yeah, I bought this because I wanted to support Nintendo with first-party titles. I like to buy a lot of the Nintendo first-party titles and give them all a fair shake, even though, you know, like, this is developed by Bandai Namco and worked on with the Pokemon Company, but it's published by Nintendo. And, yeah, I mean, it's a solid game, just not my thing, but, hey, this showed that, hey, we finally got a big boy Pokemon-type title on the Wii U. Things were looking up. And then this came out a month later. Star Fox Zero was not a great experience for me. I did not enjoy this game, and I know a lot of people attribute that to the controls, and I agree. You know, the controls I don't gel with in this game, and I know a lot of other people do. But taking the controls and putting those off to the side, I just don't think this is a great game. I don't think it's just like nothing about it really is that great. Where I look at it and I'm like, oh, if it didn't have these control problems, then I'd love this game. Probably not. I still think it would have been kind of a mediocre experience. It's just kind of like, I mean, like, it's Star Fox, sure, but it's not doing anything that, you know, I can't do by just playing Star Fox 64, so, But that came out in April, and honestly, after a couple months of just, like, frankly, pretty mediocre to bad Nintendo releases, because earlier, that past holiday, we got Mario Tennis Ultra Smash, Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival, Devil's Third, and, Devil's Third is kind of, you either love it or you hate it. I'm kind of in the middle where I'm like, it's kind of fun. But Star Fox Zero was kind of like that nail in the coffin, at least initially for me, where I still love Nintendo, but I kind of, like, after playing this game, I was just like, why the hell do I even like this company? Then in June, we got 2 games on the exact same day, Tokyo Mirage Sessions and Mario and Sonic at the 2016 Olympic Games. And then nothing until Paper Mario Color Splash, which was another fairly controversial title in terms of either love it or you hate it. I actually really liked Color Splash, but yeah, that was pretty much the Wii U releases for this year. It was a pretty light year. Not even considering the fact that there were only like 6 major releases, but the fact is about half of them, I think it's fair to say, were not great or were kind of like, I don't know, man. At least the 3DS was still kicking, right? You got Fire Emblem Fates at the beginning of the year, which, I don't play a ton of Fire Emblem. I'll try to get into it a little more eventually. But Fire Emblem Fates, a dual release, which was kind of weird. But I've heard some Fire Emblem fans aren't super into these games specifically. But that's not to take away that when you get down to it, Fire Emblem games are good games. Like, okay, you got that one, Nintendo. Point for Nintendo. There we go. Then you had Mario and Luigi Paper Jam also at the beginning of the year, which just kind of took a series that was already kind of just, getting repetitive for some people, and it just kind of like hit the nail in the coffin pretty much right there. Mario games around this time really started to get really generic. These spin-offs weren't allowed to use their own unique characters. They weren't allowed to do a lot outside of the traditional New Super Mario Bros.-esque world, where pretty much all the enemies have to be the standard enemies. All the NPCs have to basically just be toads. And Mario and Luigi always strived on being wacky and weird. And this game wasn't that, especially considering it was a crossover with Paper Mario. The idea is brilliant. It just writes itself. But they didn't do anything with it. And it's a competent RPG, but at that point, just being a competent RPG, okay, gameplay-wise, you're good. But story-wise, you don't care at all. You don't really like it. And it's kind of hard to have an RPG with a story that you just don't care about, even if the gameplay is fine enough. And then they also had a 3DS version of Mario and Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games, which is strangely enough launched a few months earlier than the Wii U version. But this game across both the Wii U and 3DS, very lackluster, honestly. Like, it just felt like they just didn't do... it just felt like this was rushed. They just wanted to get out a Mario and Sonic game this year, and that was it. When you look at the Wii entry, specifically Olympic Winter Games in London 2012, you can tell like they were putting a lot of time and effort into those, but these ones, I don't know, man. This one was pretty rough. But then you also had Hyrule Warriors Legends in March, which was a port of Hyrule Warriors on the Wii U. Very strange game to port to 3DS. It feels like out of all games that would work well on 3DS, this already didn't run that well on Wii U, so you're gonna port it to 3DS and not make it exclusive to new 3DS. It did give Hyrule Warriors a longer lifespan with these DLC characters, and you could transfer the characters from Legends, that were just straight up on the cart, to the Wii U version, and this game got a DLC packs, which then transferred over to the Wii U version. So it gave the game a far longer lifespan than I think anybody was expecting. And Hyrule Warriors definitely has a ton of fans. And it's a fun enough hack and slash, just a mindless game where you're just slamming on buttons, and you know, it has a lot of Zelda fan service, especially with this game. This one goes crazy with all different kinds of Zelda characters from all different kinds of art styles. But yeah, this was an odd one to put on 3DS considering it ran like piss. Bravely Second End Layer came out earlier in the year, so you know, there you go if that's your thing. But then we got an excellent game in June, Kirby Planet Robobot. This is my favorite Kirby game of all time. This is absolutely fantastic. It is so creative and so fun. The robot mechanic of getting in your Robobot armor and being able to scan enemies and copy their abilities, much like Kirby, but you get a different ability because it's a Robobot compared to getting the ability as Kirby. The amiibo support in this game is amazing. You know, you just take a character and they assign you a copy ability based on, you know, how much it relates to that character. So if you scan Ness, you get kind of the PSI ability, which is super fun. This is my favorite Kirby game, so 2016 was not all for nothing. Never mind. Yeah, Metroid Prime Federation Force launched this year around August time. And yeah, this isn't a bad game. It's not as bad as many people will act like it is. I think it came out at the wrong time. It's a competently made co-op first-person shooter. I think if this came out around this time, after we've actually gotten traditional Metroid games, and this is just kind of a cool little side game, I don't think people would have reacted nearly as negatively, but this was the first true Metroid game, well, not true, more of a spin-off, in years. And when we get this, frankly, I would have to ask what Nintendo was thinking. But then the major holiday, traditional, like, everyman title was Mario Party Star Rush. I have to commend them for doing something a little different with this one. It is not traditional Mario Party, but because of that, playing this game, it doesn't feel like Mario Party at all. It feels like its own weird thing. This is probably one of the more commendable Mario Parties because of that, because it's not like they tried something new like how they did with Mario Party 9 and 10, and it was just absolutely terrible. This one is more so, hey, you tried something new, good for you. Still not great, and I don't really care to play it, but it's better than 9 and 10. Then in December, they released Mario Maker for Nintendo 3DS, which was a very cool port. You know, compared to Hyrule Warriors Legends, this one actually made sense. However, this version itself doesn't, because I feel like they rushed this. They really just wanted to get it out, so you cannot share your levels online. They don't, you know, there's some other elements that are missing, like the amiibo support. It feels like a very rushed job, even though everything else works very well. The game works quite well on the 3DS, making levels and playing them. It's really cool to randomly see like the new Super Mario Bros. U art style on the 3DS, because it is actually New Super Mario Bros. U. It isn't just the 3DS game, New Super Mario Bros. 2. It's literally New Super Mario Bros. U downscaled to a 3DS, which is just bizarre. But yeah, this was a very just inconsequential release, in my opinion, where it feels like it could have been something special, but they rushed it just to get it out on 3DS, and it sold quite well for what it was. But yeah, they really botched this version by just not including online sharing, which is just kind of like, it's just something that you can't do it with a game like this. But thankfully, you had 2 Pokemon games, well, just one, isn't the dual release as normal, Pokemon Sun and Moon, which, this kind of saved the year for most people. This was the 2016 game you could really kind of look forward to, because outside of that, while 3DS fared better than Wii U, there is still quite a bunch of filler, spin-off, kind of side game content here. And that's what 2016 felt like. It was just kind of a big spin-off heavy, port heavy, side game heavy year where the games that released this year, you could mostly just kind of skip. Which it felt like Nintendo very much knew that because they put this into production. They announced the NES Classic Edition that summer, pretty much because they didn't have much else going on. They didn't have a major holiday title for Wii U. It was pretty much Paper Mario Color Splash, and they knew, I think even Nintendo employees knew, like they were like, they probably ain't gonna go over that well. And 3DS had Pokemon Sun and Moon, which, you know, was gonna do incredibly well, but you know, not everybody is a Pokemon fan, and you kind of need something else to get people excited, so why not do this, where, you know, it's pretty simple overall to put together, 30 NES games all in one, and this was really cool to see happening. I remember, this was specifically positioned, I remember reading news articles saying, like, Nintendo's bringing the NES back to market, and I thought that meant something dumb, like, they were literally going to re-release the original NES system and cartridges and all of that. Like, as in that was my first thought when reading the headline, and I was like, wow, the Wii U's doing that bad, huh? But this system's release should show you how Nintendo kind of released this because they didn't have much else going on in 2016. As a fan, it was, you know, I look back at this year kind of, like I said, pretty bittersweet, because it was something where I have a lot of nostalgia for this year because I remember kind of like checking in with news every day and seeing like, all right, what's new with Nintendo? Oh, nothing, or oh, a new rumor, oh, a new leak, oh, that didn't turn out real, okay, fine, whatever. By the end of the year, as in like, by the fall, things were getting a little ridiculous. Okay, we knew this was coming out. We knew the Wii U and 3DS games that were coming out. So there was that to look forward to. But as a Nintendo fan, you know, it's something you can only get so excited for playing Super Mario Maker on your 3DS. You can only get so excited for a Paper Mario game that many people were actively criticizing because it was a sequel to a game that everybody knew wasn't that great. So it was just kind of like, all right, come on, Nintendo. Let's get on with the NX info. And then, you know, they ended up doing anything but that. Around the fall time, they finally announced a new Nintendo Direct, and it was just for 3DS games. It was literally just for 3DS games, when everybody by September was expecting this is when they're going to reveal the NX. This is when they're going to do it. And I have a system here that fully encapsulates the sheer annoyance that came with being a Nintendo fan in 2016. The new Galaxy-style new Nintendo 3DS XL. Imagine being a Nintendo fan and you're just waiting for info on the Nintendo NX, and then Nintendo announces this randomly. And this was a system. This isn't a new system. It's just a new 3DS XL, but with a new, you know, just a new color basically. But out of all things, for Nintendo to get Reggie Fils-Aimé to announce at his office, they created a trailer for Reggie to just announce a new color of 3DS. Out of all things. And this was still around the time that we were just like, for f***'s sake, announce the goddamn NX! This system annoyed a lot of people for a couple of reasons. One, they announced it when everybody was just like, come on, just announce the NX, announce the NX, announce the NX, and they announced a new color for 3DS. It's the biggest Nintendo move I've ever seen in my life. New Galaxy style. Just a very generic Galaxy-esque design, when I think a lot of people were trying to connect the dots and go like, oh, there's this Mario Galaxy? Is Mario Galaxy coming to the 3DS? Is this a Mario Galaxy designed 3DS? No, it's not. It's literally just this Galaxy JPEG wallpaper design. This kind of reminds me of like, there was kind of like a lot of stuff where like you'd see like a lot of shirts like this, like sweatshirts, like leggings or pants, whatever, with kind of this Galaxy-esque design. And I think Nintendo was trying to go after the market that was like, yo, that's pretty cool. Because this was kind of the main new 3DS XL for a little bit there. You kind of had the standard colors, but then you had the new Galaxy style. So you had kind of black, red, and new Galaxy. I was just like, what the hell does that mean? But yeah, it's literally just a new 3DS XL with kind of a somewhat tacky-esque design. I don't think it's fully tacky, but it has elements of tackiness. Thankfully, about a month after this release was announced, they finally announced the Nintendo NX as the Nintendo Switch. That was around October 2016. But in September, they had that 3DS Direct. I was just like, what the hell are they doing? But I've always wanted to see this in person because I feel like this is probably actually a very cool looking system. Even though, like, in images, it's like one of those things where it just looks like a standard JPEG. But overall, I feel like this is actually going to look pretty nice. I'm also sorry for rambling about 2016 as a Nintendo fan. It's just fun to look back on because, like I said, when you kind of list everything, it was actually a pretty packed year for Nintendo. The problem is the stuff that was packing it up was mostly kind of mediocre or just inconsequential titles. So that's just kind of the problem. The new 3DS XL did not come with a charger, as most people remember. Very odd that they do that. I think it would make a lot more sense if they did something like, if it didn't come with a charger, at least like, you know, give it like micro USB or USB-C or something like that to charge. But let's see. Wow. You know what? That's pretty nice. I will say, the new 3DS XL always felt like the most premium 3DS, where this does look quite nice. The only new 3DS XL I ever had was the SNES edition, and they originally had like a Super Famicom, Super Nintendo in Europe version in other regions. And yeah, I think specifically some people were like, why are you bringing out the new Galaxy-style 3DS XL when you could bring out the Super Nintendo one? And rightfully so, because this is a wonderful system. Not just because it's like Super Nintendo design, but the top is a matte finish, which I really appreciate. Most new 3DS XLs, you could probably tell, that is a glossy finish, which at least with a kind of a design on this, if you kind of get fingerprints on it, it's not going to show up nearly as much as it would if it was just a standard one-color design. The new 3DS XL is definitely the most premium feeling 3DS, though. Everything just feels really, really solid with this thing. But I will say my favorite 3DS is still the regular new 3DS. Just with how beautiful the white model is with the Super Nintendo colored buttons. You do get that on the new 3DS XL, but they're not as apparent, you know, they just have the lettering colored, while on the original new 3DS, the full button is colored, which I really prefer. But yeah, this design is pretty nice in person. I think in images, it looked kind of lame and tacky, but in person, this is really, really nice. The new 3DS XL is easily like the definitive model of 3DS. You get it all with this system. One of the main problems with this one was having to unscrew the back cover to insert a new micro SD card, which is really lame. That's super annoying. But the thing is, you kind of do that once and then you're done with it, so whatever. I'm still probably gonna consistently use the SNES model, just because there's less fingerprints that are going to appear when you play this one, just based on the texture that they or the finish that they use. But this is still a really nice looking model in person. It may be a little too flashy, but I don't know, in person, just the way this all looks and kind of shines, it's really nice. However, I will always remember this system as just the epitome of what 2016 was for me as a Nintendo fan, where I'm just like waiting for Nintendo to reveal the only thing I could ever possibly care about, and they do something dumb like this.